Okay, cool. What's up? Welcome to a very special, very new, very different version of us
Yes.
through this Zoom video thing that we do. But basically, what the idea with this is that we're going to do like a special offshoot of Movie Schmovie. John was saying it's like Movie Schmovie presents, and then we're going to call it Marvel Schmarvel. The idea behind doing this is that we do our normal podcast episodes every week, and we kind of always feel like we're behind the ball because we record them in the middle of the week. We miss these episodes as they air, like Wandavision. This is the one we're going to be talking about now. But the idea is that we would kind of get together, Friday, Saturday, whatever we can swing, and still be able to talk about these episodes, these Marvel properties, in a more timely manner, and also really just not have to constantly try to play catch up on the regular Movie Schmovie podcast. So we're here today. I'm Steve. Who else am I with again? Just for those who don't know.
I'm Ron.
And I'm John.
And we're going to be talking about WandaVision. So yesterday, Friday, the new episode aired. I think this is episode 6 of a 9-episode season. And the episode is called, was it like a very special Halloween episode?
Yes.
Is that the name of it?
I believe that's the name of it.
Yeah. So it's cool that we're going to do this. I think this is a great idea because I think John, or whoever mentioned it, I forget who even came up with it, but the idea just that we can talk about it more timely, like the idea that we don't have to kind of wait all week and be the ones reading all this stuff throughout the week. We can talk about it immediately and kind of give our thoughts on the episodes. And especially because we've said on the podcast, for the foreseeable future, like Disney Plus is going to basically be pumping out Marvel content every week for a while. And, this gives us a chance to talk about that. And, the other Marvel stuff as it comes down the line too. But so yeah, WandaVision, episode 6.
I want to
Where
make
you
a
guys
special
at?
note. It was called All New Halloween Spooktacular.
All new Halloween. Okay.
On a very special episode was the 5th episode, the prior week.
Okay. All new Halloween Spooktacular.
Yes.
Love it.
That's a great.
So what did you guys? I mean, before we get to the general thing, I wanted to ask, like, each of these episodes, they're obviously like kind of going through the decades and, kind of trying to do a certain kind of sitcom from these different decades. And as we got past, episode 3 and 4, and you've gotten a lot more of the real time today story outside of the Hex. You've got a little less of the in the WandaVision world of each week's decade that they're talking about. But this week, what did you guys think of like this idea of like the 90s sitcom, and even the commercial that we got through the episode? Like, what was your feeling? What shows did it kind of remind you of the most?
Oh, Malcolm in the Middle.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Like,
Yeah.
That's it,
straight
right?
shot at Malcolm in the Middle, right down to having like the kid narrate. Now I know other shows have done that, but to me, having the kid like turn to the camera and narrate, but the style of the comedy, the way Evan Peters was kind of amping up his acting and being kind of cartoonish and kind of doltish, but also sort of fun. It felt very much like a character on that show. And also the theme song, and the text up on the screen. I was actually wondering, like, where are they going to go with this? Because they've already done the sort of typical 80s sitcom in a previous episode that kind of felt like Full House and that kind of stuff. And then I know that they haven't yet gotten to the mockumentary style, which is clear from one of the trailers that we're going to get at least some material with them talking to the camera, like one of those shows. And I was like, well, what really comes in between those, And I didn't even think about the Malcolm in the Middle, the sort of frenetic kind of like family sitcom that's got that Fox like grittiness turned up on it or something.
Definitely.
I think another thing that I don't know I've never heard anybody say this. I've been watching a bunch of summaries and stuff like that. I don't know if anything like this could have existed without the presence of parodies, kind of like Too Many Cooks. That is, if you watch Too Many Cooks, it is a kind of, if you take the blueprint of House of M, and then what Too Many Cooks does, where it kind of dips in and out of shows, it plays with text. Like literally, some of these scenes I could show you frame for frame are the same, where like text coming down in the credits, and they're like, no, that's not a part of it. That all has happened in Too Many Cooks. So somebody is a big fan of these comics, but also a fan of, Too Many Cooks isn't the only thing to ever do it, but it is the most definitive version. And it's like, it's cheeky like Too Many Cooks. It has some pieces of it like it, like I said, some frame for frame. So I think we got to put that in the air too. But yeah, obviously taking some homage from Malcolm in the Middle and talking to the screen and stuff like that. But I think it's really cool. I think they use those tools in a really cool way. And the Halloween episode lent itself to kind of pay homage to these older versions of the comic book characters that we've known. So, you know, if you've ever even seen the cover of a comic book, you know that some of these characters have these outfits from the Halloween episode, which is I thought was incredible. What you guys think about that?
I was going to mention that specifically. That issue 75 of the first run of the Avengers is when like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver came back after an absence, I think. But they with those designs, with the what is considered the kind of classic Quicksilver costume, which is the blue with the white lightning going across it, and that version of Wanda's costume is kind of like her first costume mixed with her second costume. So yeah, those are very classic. And then Visions was also, you know, like that idea that he's like a red-faced guy in a green suit is kind of lost in the new sort of mecha version of the character. But yeah, that was sort of the way he was drawn always before, as though he was wearing a cowl with a costume, you know. So I think yes, it was very. It made it feel like, oh, this is what it would have looked like if we'd gotten like an Adam West style Marvel show, you know, like that version of the costumes. I thought that was a lot of fun, particularly with Evan Peters, who suddenly had a lot more. You know, like he wasn't just a cameo. He had a big role in this episode, and his costume in particular felt like they were really winking at, you know, doesn't this look kind of silly in a way compared to what you expect?
It's almost like, you know, there's so much criticism always like about when like these costumes get realized in movies and TV shows, whatever, you know what I mean? Like people criticizing the way this looks or that looks. So it's also kind of funny that, you know, you get this in this series that's kind of playing around a lot with the different decades of sitcoms, and then you bring these like classic superhero costumes into this as Halloween costumes, which by default are usually oversimplified versions of costumes of things that you're trying to emulate. You know, so like there's like these layers on layers of like how silly these costumes from these comics may actually look realized, but then you take a version of that and make a Halloween costume out of it. And you're like, that's kind of looks even sillier. Like Quicksilver's costume, like looks very silly, you know, to the point that like the kid having the same costume, it looks even more ridiculous on a little kid. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought the costumes were really, and like you guys, I had read more about like, you know, those being versions from the comics. So like, it's kind of funny that there's all these, they're doing so much in this show in such little short episodes to kind of really hit the comics and kind of appeal to people that are very familiar with the comics, but yet also kind of like tapping into the casual Marvel fan to be like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I didn't know that was exactly what, you know, her costume was in episode 75 or whatever it was.
Right.
But yeah, setting it around a Halloween episode is just fun because everybody's version of what they're dressing up as in general, in most cases, especially in the 90s, you know, these costumes were not very impressive, you know? So like, this is what it would look like to have the not great version of, you know, of that costume.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, man. And we start off with kind of a splitting of the storylines. You know, Vision is very consumed with this idea of monitoring something, taking care of something, so he has to leave. We don't exactly know why until very much later in the series. I mean, in the episode, and the gang has gone to like basically trick or treat together. That's the goal, and by doing that, we have kind of separated the storylines within this episode, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, from the beginning, he clearly had sort of a mission or something on his mind. More to the point, something he was not telling Wanda after last week. And maybe even with the appearance of Pietro, her brother, and maybe he recognizes this is not the right version. It's tough to know exactly what he knows to be true and what he suspects of her and just what he feels as a whole in his own memory. Because last week he made it clear that he doesn't really remember the whole story of his being. But I feel like we got another clue about what's going on, and it actually relates to Vision. And I was going to ask you guys what you think of this. I guess we'll just call them like death flashes. But for a minute there, Wanda saw her brother dead.
Yeah.
With the wounds that killed him. It was still Evan Peters and not Aaron Taylor Johnson. Although she did say kick-ass, which was
I love that.
Clear nod to that that guy. But what do you think of those flashes? Is that her seeing what's actually in front of her? Like, again, I said this last time, but I'm really hung up on this idea, this ghastly idea. Is she really reanimating a dead body, like with Vision and her brother? Or is that just in her mind? She knows they're dead, and so it's like a nightmare vision of like the real version of them. And I think we almost found out this week whether Vision, if he escaped Westview, right?
Yeah.
If he got outside that whatever that magic wall that she's built, would he have just been a corpse laying there, or would he have been a revived Vision? And I think that question now exists about Pietro too. Like, can he even exit the scope of her magic? Does he only exist? We don't know about that. We'll get to the other denizens of Westview in a second. But what do you guys think of those death flashes, and how grisly do you think this show is willing to get with like what's actually quote unquote going on?
Oh man.
Well, I think we need to keep in mind that this is on Disney Plus. So I don't know that, the full realization of like these corpses walking around may be where it goes. I mean, it'd be interesting if that's the case.
I mean, the commercial got pretty dark though.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure,
I don't know. I think they're willing to go there.
That was
dark. Sure, it's dark, but it's also like a stop motion animation as opposed to like a dead person. I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you in general, but I'm almost leaning towards the second of the options, John. I think the first would be more interesting and more kind of like out there. But I mean, I almost feel like it's maybe like a break in her and what she's seeing through the magic of or some sort of realization of like what this really should be or is. Especially like you said, like when you see Vision kind of getting out or trying to get out of the hex and, what's happening to him. And that scene, by the way, is just like heartbreaking again. Like how many times do we have to watch Vision die? You know
20,
what I mean?
I
Like,
think.
yeah, and it's literally like he's doing the same movement as he did in Infinity War. Like he's on the same kind of motion, and it's just like, yeah. So it's horrible to watch. But yeah, I don't know.
He's a good guy.
He's
always trying to do something right.
And like he's literally dying again, saying these people need help. Like he's saying that. Like that is fucking heartbreaking.
It is
again, and but yeah, ultimately, I do think like. I would be curious what plays out, but I do feel like it's maybe some sort of break in whatever like spell she's under, or I don't know exactly what's happening. Like we talked about last podcast, obviously there's lots of theories, but I do think that there's something else at play beyond just what she's doing. And I think that might be like some sort of collision of like what she's controlling and what she's aware that she's doing and what else is kind of at play with what somebody else might be manipulating behind the scenes.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because Vision kind of goes beyond the point of his neighborhood. And as he goes throughout the neighborhood, people stop being quite as animated. Right. And that's a testament to whatever is happening is definitely set up specifically for them. He keeps going. There's the lady that's putting up the clothing that's clearly crying, that looks miserable, that is playing her role. She's cast in this hex. The question that I have to ask you guys is, whose hex is it? Whose hex do you think it is? Do you think it's somebody that we've seen on screen already, or do you think it's something bigger?
Well, think about the fact that if this was a movie, and I'm not saying it should be compared to a movie, but if this 9-episode season was a movie, we're now 2/3 into it. We've got 3 episodes left. So 2/3 into a movie, don't you usually kind of know who the villain is, or what's going on? So is this show going to end with a reveal of who was really behind it and then a boom, now we know, and the adventure's on? Or is this show going to end with a sense that, well, we've fixed that problem and now we know a little more about this or that? So I think people need to be open to the possibility that Wanda really is behind this, quote unquote. But if there are other entities that get revealed as a kind of last minute twist, it is inherently something we won't really have much time to deal with on this show unless they really give us like a last episode that's just balls to the wall. So I think that we are going to deal with, even if like as we discover like who's controlling Wanda or who's putting these ideas in her head, I think that will be more like a final twist or a big reveal after we deal with the current problem, which is getting Wanda to realize that she's doing something that she should stop doing. And I think the people on the edge of town, the people that are like, I don't know if we're to take that as just like these are people she's not using right now, and so they're kind of stuck in these loops, or if it's just that the further you get away from her, the less her power is concerned with you. But it seems like if you're with her or Vision, then she's keeping that illusion. You know what I mean? She's keeping the people around them acting on cue. So what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is really disturbing, with these people being seemingly aware that they're stuck in a trap. And yeah, these people on the edge of town are like, they seem to know they're in a nightmare, you know? So I think that is part of the creepiness. And yeah, I mean, I guess the answer to who's Hex, we don't know. We don't know yet. We haven't been given enough information to know who outside of Wanda is responsible for this. But my suspicion is that someone is using Wanda's power to do this.
I think
Yes.
Not so much that someone else is doing this and Wanda's just a dupe or something like that. But yeah, like who could it be and have it be satisfying if you find out in the last 5 minutes? We haven't really had a villain getting set up. They need to start pretty quick if there's going to be a villain here.
So wouldn't it be, I guess, like logically, it almost feels like if that's the case, and I do agree, I think that it's probably going to be more of a, like the whole idea that these are things that are springboards into the movies, like, you know, that there's obviously ties in between this and the next Doctor Strange film. It almost feels like this can serve a purpose to, you know, maybe introduce a big bad that may be more dealt with in that movie. You know, like that might be something that, especially because she has a role in that movie, a substantial role from what it sounds like. But I don't know. I feel like it is something where you got 3 episodes left. So I don't know that they're going to be like, here's the villain, and she's going to deal with it in 3 episodes. It's probably going to be more like, let's peel away what's happening. You know, I do agree. I think she is doing this, but I think it's being manipulated, you know, by someone or something else. And that character, I think, would maybe more, you know, developed or kind of, you know, would be more important maybe in the movie that it ties to, because I think that the show, this series is more about, like, you know, more about her character and like why she would even want to do this, right. You know, and there's probably motivations and kind of factors that are obviously way more a part of this, because there's lots of parts in the series like where things have come up, even like Pietro, and like that she's not even aware of happening, you know, like she's not understanding where it came from. So, you know, she seems to be harnessed in a way that she's not even aware of at sometimes, at some points. And like, even with the kids and like things like that, there's a lot of things happening that she doesn't seem to consciously be in control of, even though it's obviously her power that's making it happen. And yeah, it's like that part of it is like the mystery, and I like that. And that's like, I don't know that they need to solve that really in this series, but maybe that is going to be like a big twist at the end of the episode, the final, you know, episode of the season or whatever, that we learn more about this threat or this person that's maybe manipulating her powers, and you know what that means for the rest of the the MCU.
Sometimes in these shows you think you might get stuff that just would tell stories you wouldn't ever get otherwise. So it's possible, like maybe there's no room for any more Vision ever in their plans for the movies, but maybe we got a little more Paul Bettany in this role on this show.
I agree.
It's the same way with Falcon and Winter Soldier. They don't really want to spend a whole new Captain America franchise dealing with who's gonna be called Captain America, but they get to do that on Disney Plus. All the Disney shows that they've announced, really the only one that sounds like it should be a movie is Secret Invasion, the one with Ben Mendelsohn and Samuel L. Jackson. All the others sound like shows that exist to do something you won't get otherwise. So, I mean, I don't think that means this is glorified connective tissue. I think for comics readers, you've been alluding to House of M and the Vision comics all along, Ronald, as we've talked about this show. Like, this gives viewers of the show and fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe a chance to have that sort of like multiple issue limited series kind of storyline, where it's like this is an other worlds thing. This is because this is about as kooky of a story as they could tell within the Marvel sphere. I had one question I wanted to ask you before we go on, because next week might answer it, and it's kind of connected to all the stuff that we're saying. What is Pietro's role? Because he seems to be, if he is some manifestation of her subconscious or something, he's probing at her. He reminds me of Monica a few episodes back, where she's in the illusion, but she's also seemingly trying to get Wanda to do something or get Wanda to realize something. Did you get that sense from him, the way he was talking to her? It was a little bit like he doesn't buy into the world that he's in. Now, that was either just Pietro's personality, is that even if you brought him back from the dead, he'd be like, what the fuck's going on? You know, like, why am I brought back from the dead? But it also seems like maybe he was saying, and what does that make you think, Wanda? You know, like trying to get her to say or do something. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
I have a theory that's related to all of this stuff, and I want to ask a question to a question. So yeah, I think
Oh,
that
you're one of
there's
those
some.
guys answering a question with a question. I see.
So I think that the hex, as we know it, is kind of an amalgamation of whatever it is that Wanda's doing and whatever Agnes has convinced her to do, right? And I think that these episodes are training ground. And I kind of shared this on the last episode. I think the episodes are a training ground to kind of let her unlock parts of her ability. So within the hex, she's helping her learn how to create life, take, reanimate people, have kids, stuff like that. So that's, I
Yeah.
think within the hex, that's what it is.
I think you're right. I think you're right that there could be some. Again, I don't think it means this story is inherently like inessential. I think this it's cool to get this look into this very detailed process by which we're going to learn what not what Black Widow, what Scarlet Witch is actually capable of, and we get to see this other little piece of the pie. It kind of resolves her grief issues in a strange way if this show's over. So
Doesn't like I feel like Pietro, or he calls himself Peter,
Yeah.
like he seems like, again, I'm not the comics guy in this conversation. Never am, so coming from a different side of it, it's like something seems off with that character to me as well. Like
Yeah.
Agnes, I get it, like there's something going on there, and I would, very interested to see what that is. But I just feel like the Quicksilver of it all, the Pietro of it all, is very questionable to me. Like, I think just some of the dialogue he had in this episode, and kind of probing about, like, your husband dying twice, and like lines of dialogue that just seem like probing, like kind of like you were saying, John, like, like he's trying to get something out of her, but I'm guessing almost not from like a positive place,
oh
like
yeah, there's
not help,
modification,
not help like Monica maybe was, or anything like that, but like almost like maybe he's involved, or he is like a character that is actually like the bad person of the show, maybe,
like a
or like,
manifestation of the devil or something. He even kind of
yes,
acts
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what a lot of people are saying. I'm not super familiar, but like Mephisto is one that keeps coming up.
Yeah.
That he may be that character, or some pawn of that character, and that seems logical to me after reading more about that. I mean, especially some of the dialogue that he uses in this episode definitely seems consistent with that. So that would be really interesting if that is where they go with it. But I don't know. It's just like I like how they just kind of, and again, the format of like such short episodes, it just makes you like, oh God, I need more of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's like it moves so quick that you're like, it's over before it even starts. But they do such a great job of kind of like ending it with so many more questions than they've answered, but not in like a negative way. You know what I mean?
Okay. That actually, all right. So I have an idea. So as we close this out,
Yes.
let's ask 3 questions. Each of us ask a question that we're wondering based on this episode. Let's pose a question based on what we've seen so far, each of us, and then we can close it out. Because I feel like we still have more questions. What the hell?
Absolutely. Let me throw mine out real quick, just because it's immediately on my head, in my mind. I mean, is it Darcy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kat Dennings' character?
Yeah.
I just want to know what she looks like in the hex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because you see everybody else, swallowed by it, and you see immediately what they turn into, and you hear her like, oh shit, or oh whatever she says, and it just gets her. It's a stupid question, but I'm just so curious.
No, that's a good question.
What they decide to make her like in this hex, especially if it picks up next week and it's like in the 2000s or whatever kind of format they're following in WandaVision. Like, it's a fun question, but I'd like to see what they do with her.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
So, we got the information that Monica Rambeau going in and out of the hex has mutated her DNA.
Yes.
What the hell?
Well, that's what happened.
The first time we've heard this term.
That's what happened to Monica Rambeau in the comics, is that she was present at an interdimensional event and gained powers from that.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
Monica Rambeau was a character who was new. Like, Carol Danvers was an older character, but she was Miss Marvel. Monica Rambeau is, I think, from like 1968. They had Miss Marvel, played by Carol Danvers, and then they had Captain Marvel, played by Carol Danvers. That was the character's name. But like, so Monica Rambeau was actually the first female character named Captain Marvel, but she was not the first one. It's a very confusing thing. So what they're doing with Monica is it's so far kind of on with her origin, if she has powers that she's gotten that way, but her having any relationship to Captain Marvel, I didn't see that anywhere in the comics. So I'm very curious about where they're going.
Yeah. First time we've ever heard the word mutate in this world. So that's a big deal. That's a Fox crossover situation. Let's see what happens. What's going to happen? So that's my question. What's going to happen with that?
I guess I asked most of my questions. I think my overhanging question is really still going to be, because I love Vision, like what's up with Vision? How much of that is really him, and how much of that is just like some projection of her subconscious that knows what she's doing is wrong, similar to any of these characters that sort of seem to be poking at the edges of things. Like how much control does Wanda really have, and how much is the Vision just under her control, and how much is he like, still his own being?
Cool.
Yeah. Poor Vision.
I know.
Poor Vision, man. I can't watch him die anymore, man. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I know.
Yeah.
Leave Vision alone.
Free Vision.
Yeah.
Vision. Free Vision.
Free Vision. Jesus.
Oh man. All right. Well.
Yes. Hashtag Free Vision. I'm there.
Start the movement. Okay. Cool. Well, that'll wrap it up. Marvel Schmarvel. So we'll try to do these every week while these Disney shows are running or a Marvel property comes out. It'd be nice to kind of like break it off and talk a little more in depth about it like we just did. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, we got 3 episodes left. And if something crazy happens between now and then, or any news, any kind of breaking stuff, we'll mention it on the podcast. But yeah, that'll wrap it up. You guys anything else you want to mention, guys, before we close out?
Well, what do we say at the end of Marvel Schmarvel?
Oh man.
I don't know.
As always, you've made.
Hey,
maybe people could
our Marvel.
Something.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, we could just say like, see you next time.
What if?
Yeah.
Until next time. What if? No, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
All right, cool. All right, good seeing you guys, and we'll be back next week to talk more about episode 7 when it airs on the 19th.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye.
Excelsior.
Bye.